This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight is Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
In this week's episode, we have two British crime thrillers to look at. We're going to kick off with Bluff, followed by the Bezonians. Our short shot this week is the Star Wars fan film CAD BANE, and then we're going to round off with Wounded in our DTV Throwback. So without further ado, let's crack on.
Our first review then is Bluff. A London police officer goes undercover as a heroin addict in a small English town and manipulates an unsuspecting local junkie into working with him for a dangerous drug dealer. This film owes a huge debt, Rich, to a certain film. See if you can guess which one I'm thinking of.
Well, I've got a couple in mind, so it could be
the most obvious one. The obvious one that this borrows heavily from.
Oh man, I'm probably going to really kick myself.
This bears a striking resemblance to Deep Cover.
See, I might have thought of that if I'd ever seen it, but I do know of it, but I've never seen it.
Rich, sort that out.
I know it's the Lawrence Fishburne, Jeff Goldblum movie.
Jeff Goldblum, yeah, directed by Bill Duke. In fact, I was going to kick off with a certain line for that film, in that, there comes a point where he turns around to his handler and says, you set me up as a cop pretending to be a drug dealer, but actually I'm just a drug dealer pretending to be a cop. And I'm pretty sure there's a line very similar to that in this. We're about 2/3 of the way through. So yeah, we have this officer, Miller. No, that's wrong. It's Imran, isn't it? Who's sent undercover. He's sort of set
I think
up.
His name is Miller.
Is it? Anyway, he's sort of set up as a disgraced police officer who leaves London, heads out, and sort of becomes a sort of down and out kind of guy. Ends up befriending a junkie, just so he can sort of start learning the system and climbing the ranks. I have one major issue with this film. I don't mind it a lot, but I do have one major issue, and that is its structure. It keeps flicking between time zones all the time, and unfortunately, its main, its main twist is so obvious early on. It's not a surprise at all. It's so obvious, and the structure was horrible. How about you, Rich? How did you get on with Bluff?
I thought it was terrific. I actually didn't mind the structure. I mean, I kind of got what they were doing when it was happening, and I thought they articulated it quite well. I mean, it was in a fairly similar fashion to, I guess, like Christopher Nolan or something, with the non-linear structure and not really explaining when you're moving between certain time, which time period you're actually in. You've kind of got to stay on the ball and be aware of, he's got the way he's acting is slightly different, or his haircut, and the keeping an eye on those details to work out where you are. But no, I didn't mind that at all. I thought, yes, okay, pretty much everything in it is derivative of something. I mean, you've picked up Deep Cover. When I was watching it, I was thinking of perhaps films like ID were touchstones, and Rush with Jason Patrick, which was also an undercover drugs, a guy goes agent or cop or whatever. I can't remember what it was. It was a grim movie anyway. I saw it when I was a kid. It was not the action movie I was expecting it to be. But ID, because of British and stuff. Actually, ID 2, Shadwell Army, probably a little bit closer to this one because that was also a film about an Asian lead. The cast I thought were great. Was all pretty much unknowns to me. Gersh Gill as Miller was excellent. Nizaro Karim as Imran, the drug dealer, I thought was pretty good. The only real recognizable, member of the cast, or not even a name, but I recognized him. But Joe Egan, the big, weathered, muscle of Imran, he's pretty much the only sort of familiar face, so I would say, in the movie. And he, even he's not that high profile, but he's got a reputation, and you see him pop up in things like Avengement and stuff, usually playing to type, these sort of hard man characters. But but this is the most fleshed out role I've seen him play, which was great. So because normally he just has a couple of lines and sort of throws a few punches and stuff, but in this one he's one dimensional, but he gets a number of scenes, and I enjoyed that. So the twist, as you say, not massive, not really a surprise at all. The whole film, actually, and some of those elements did remind me of Silent Night recently. I think it was actually well over a year ago now. I think it was
yes.
I think it was the year before last, but which was also a British crime story kind of film, with some psychological stuff going on. I thought it was nicely. I mean, it was made with pretty much no. But you watch the end credits. There's barely any credits. It was not made by a big crew. No. I think they managed to get good camera operator, good cameras and stuff to shoot it. Good little cast, and the guy who did it, the director, Sheikh Shanawaz, is an experienced short film maker. He had a YouTube channel that was very active, a bit like Blake Ridder. He used to put out regular short films, which I haven't had a chance to check out yet, but I definitely will. He was putting them out like one or two a month for a while, and then he's clearly got a chance to make this feature, and I think it's excellent. And for what he was potentially working with, what he was trying to go for, I think he carries it all off. The ambience, the score by Savvas, I think his name. I thought that was really good, quite ambient, a little bit synthy, or very synthy at times, if I recall correctly. But this was a very pleasant surprise. I to be honest, I went in with quite low expectations. Yeah. And it was much more polished and professional, and than I'd really expected.
I did enjoy it overall, but I do have issues, like I said. The structure. There is one particular scene towards the end, to do with his handler, which it just seems so out of place, considering everything else that's happened. It's like, no, that should have been a lot earlier. But anyway, that's beside the point.
There seems a little bit of Departed. I mean, there's not like two different factions or whatever, but the sort of Departed Infernal Affairs thing seemed a little bit of an influence as well. I don't know if that's just because these conventions are so familiar that they basically appear. They've appeared in so many forms over the years that you could read a lot into any of these, any film that's particularly like this. But those meeting scenes did sort of have an air of that to me.
Yeah, especially when it transpires that he is more of a pawn than he even realized. He's basically stuck between two overly ambitious, sort of high-ranking officers, and what one of them kind of has his interests at heart, but not. So that was interesting. Nice to sort of deal with that. But, okay. So how are you going to score this one, Rich?
I'm definitely going to give this an 8.
All right, it's a 6 from me. So that is a 6 and an 8 for Bluff. It's out shortly. Go check it out. Our next review is The Bezonians. Plato runs the Bezonian social club in North London, where generations of Greek immigrants have gambled away their savings and partied over the decades. When Plato makes the mistake of playing poker with devious bombshell Lola, the fate of the club, as well as his very life, is threatened. Okay, I never thought we would be back with a film by Savvas D, Rich. Considering we did a trilogy of his films last year, with, what were they called? Red Dust?
Red Rage.
Red Rage, sorry.
Righteous Villains.
And Notorious Gangster, was it?
Original Gangster.
Original
Steve
Gangster.
Guttenberg.
Steve Guttenberg. So, you know, 3 very strange films with that sort of hyper stylized sort of look to them. This one is a bit different. This is definitely leaning more into early Guy Ritchie territory. That's where it wants to be. Does it work though? There are some good scenes in this for sure, and there is a pretty standout performance by Mr. Vinnie Jones. That is probably almost at his meanest in this one. But there are certain characters who definitely had more screen time than they needed, for sure. And there's other characters who I wish we had more screen time of. But over to you.
I'm surprised. I mean, considering what you've been saying recently, especially after last week's review of This Game's Not Murder, and you know how tiresome you find certain films.
I do,
of this type, and I was thinking this is like the playbook for that kind of movie.
And yeah, but some of it works. I will give it that. Some of this does work.
Okay, before I get into too much, tell me what you think works.
Well, like I said, Vinnie Jones, for example, his character was great.
Was it though? I mean, was it? He was barely in it. He didn't get to do anything.
He did enough, and you know, he has that sort of screen presence that you just cannot take your eyes off him when he's on screen. The bit where he comes into the club and says, "Oh, I'll be back on Saturday," you know, that whole scene, I thought he was great because he's sort of kind of affable, but at the same time menacing. His facial expressions are brilliant. You know, this is a guy who's really learned how to act, I think, you know. But yeah, I thought he was really good. What else did I like? I like the main character of Plato. I thought he was pretty cool. And some of Achilles, some of his scenes are okay. I think they made the mistake of having him so smitten with Lola. You know, I wish they just kept him sort of cool and aloof, but they sort of destroyed it all, I think. But there you go. Anyway, did you like any of this?
Not really. I think I'll be honest. I think I'm done with Savvas Michael's films. You were saying that it leans into early Guy Ritchie, which it does, but funnily enough, it actually leans into early Savvas Michael as well, because it's pretty much a remake of his first film, Smoking Guns. It's even got half the same cast. That film was also a Guy Ritchie influenced film, which had Dexter Fletcher from Lock, Stock in it, and obviously this one's got Vinnie Jones from Lock, Stock in it. I actually didn't mind Smoking Guns. That's probably the film that he's done that I got on the best with. This one I think it's got that same stuff. It's got the same stuff going on, that sort of shambolic, you know, character portraits, you know, not really much of a plot going on kind of thing. But I didn't mind it but there's all this other stuff in here as well. So as we found with I think Righteous Villains in particular, there's some politics at play, and there's some there's some stuff that's going on with the stuff that the characters seem to think and say and act that seems quite I don't know, not challenging, but you know, it's not a viewpoint that I'm kind of on board with, and it seems like it's not done in a satirical way.
Yeah.
The character, Plato, the Plato character
Mm.
is a coronavirus, denier and all that sort of stuff. But it's also
And Trump supporter, isn't he? Yeah.
And Trump supporter, and there's a lot of, the film is quite misogynistic. I think it's fair to say, although it's got this strong alpha female character.
It's very much a man's world sort of thing.
It is that typical sort of alpha. I mean, the opening of the film sets it up. It was exactly what it just made me think. Oh Jesus, the opening moment is like this character delivering this really artificial, grand monologue.
Yeah, you know how I feel about those.
Yeah. Talking in a way, it's like, oh god. And then this really prolonged scene of the club, and
introducing all these characters and their history,
all the naked women running around in the club and stuff, basically. And then we gradually get introduced to characters one by one and like their stories. And the one I had trouble with the most was the mentally disabled character, which was just I think you could be offended or you could just be irritated or whatever. Whichever way you look at it, for me, none of that works at all.
None of it. Not a single second of it works.
And it becomes really important, and it's like a big thing at the climax and stuff.
I know, and it's such a big part of the film. He gets so much screen time. It's ridiculous. Yeah, and as you say, it's just such a misstep.
Yeah. So I found most of it unappealing and arguably tasteless and misogynistic, if you want to say that.
This isn't the first time as well, is it? Was it Red Rage where they had no the other one, Angels and Gangsters?
Righteous
Gangsters. That's the one. So where they had that whole shtick, wasn't it, about sort of putting these liberals on trial and burning them at the stake or something.
Righteous Villains. There was a lot of that. I mean, of those films that we saw last time, Original Gangsters was the most accessible.
Yeah.
Original Gangster, I should say. That had some weird stuff in it, but I didn't. That was the one I got on the best with, to be honest. The others, he does this sort of. He likes to. It's very indulgent, and this is a film with a very long running time of like nearly 2 hours. There's lots of these characters getting their long scenes and stuff, and then they kind of disappear and you don't even see them again. It's almost like a series of vignettes rather than and the plot it's one of those movies where no real sort of plot is established until quite late into the film, and it's like, okay, this is the bit that's going to be
the
very
thing that
draws towards the end.
There's the poker game, and the poker game comes out of nowhere, doesn't it? It's basically player goes, "Do you want a game of poker this weekend?" Yeah, all right, yeah, let's have a game of poker this weekend, and then invite this Lola along, and they invite her along just to get Achilles on board, basically, and it turns out to be this huge mistake. But yeah, we're 2/3 of the way into the film by this point.
Which again, I guess you could say, that was stuff like that is Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels and stuff did that kind of thing as well. But that was a long time ago and arguably much better.
Done with a lot more style and a lot more likable characters.
But yeah, I mean, Vinnie Jones, I go back to him. You see him at the beginning and he kills some people, and then he gets an acting scene where he's actually playing against type and he's being all
sort of submissive and
sort of desperate because he loves this girl and stuff. And it's not the Vinnie Jones, that side of him is not something you normally see.
Yeah,
which is, so that's fair. But I didn't think it worked. I wasn't convinced. I thought it was quite poorly performed, unfortunately. But yeah, when he comes in at the end, the whole thing though does feel like he's not his Lock, Stock character, but he feels like his Layer Cake character,
possibly
to an extent. So yeah, we talked about these geezer teaser, which is that term for those movies by Randall Emmett. But this is literally a geezer teaser because it's a geezer movie, and they're putting Vinnie Jones front and center, and he gets second billing, but he's barely in it. Marina Sirtis, Deanna Troi from Star Trek Next Generation, gets actually more to do than he does. She gets only a little bit. She's in like 2 scenes, I think, but she gets like she gets one scene where she gets to sort of again deliver a pretty, I'll be honest, completely unnecessary monologue.
I think Jesse Johnson used the better in Debt Collector 2.
Which was a nice surprise.
Better role in there.
And I think she also did. I think she did Green Street 2 with him as well. There's
another stupid scene in this right at the end, when Lola is walking past the club and everyone's sort of giving her grief and everything. And I just think, why would you walk past the club? Why? Go out of go to the next street or something. Why the fuck would you walk down that street? It's ridiculous, and you'd have to be the most oblivious person ever to think that would be okay at that stage. It's so dumb. But anyway, you're saying
I didn't mind. No, I should give her, because her character is very important to the story. I think she gives a strong performance. I'll be fair. I think she's decent. She definitely holds her own. Both the character and the actress playing. I can't remember. I haven't got the list in front of me of the cast. So was it? I should give her I should look it up. Lois Braben Platt.
That's it.
Lola. Yeah. So she's the strongest female character in the story, and the most important, and the one that basically gets the best of generally gets the best of everyone. So that's a character, a type of character we don't generally see, I think. So that's quite interesting. There's that scene where there's another woman also from previous films, the big lady who comes in and starts shouting the N-word and stuff. And I was getting a bit worried. I got a bit worried at first there, because I was thinking, is this the politics or the I'm going against political correctness sort of feeling that they're sort of going with the film? But no, then the film sort of says, that's bang out of order, and a big bar brawl kind of thing ensues. So that was fine. That was all right. That was quite well executed. We've seen so much of this, not just from Savvas Michael, but from with, like you were saying, Blonde Purple and stuff. We've kind of seen so many films of this type. I think this is one of the ones I've enjoyed least. I can't say enjoy it. I could watch it. I did drift away after the. I did struggle to not be thinking, "Oh Jesus," all the time when stuff was happening. But I could watch it. It was watchable, but I would not recommend it. It's one of the films that I've enjoyed least, and I will sadly be rating lowest.
Well, on that note, then, Rich, how are you going to rate it?
I think I can only give it a 4. Really, 3. But I'll it's got good production values and stuff, so I'll go 4.
Okay. I think surprisingly, I think I actually enjoyed it a little bit more than you. So, and despite my usual misgivings for this sort of thing, I think there's just about enough for a 5 out of this one. So that is a 4 and a 5 for the Bezonians. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is CAD BANE. This is a Star Wars fan film about the bounty hunter CAD BANE, who, with the help of a Jawa, is off to fight some stormtroopers to try and obtain a missing artifact. The character of CAD BANE is not somebody I'm familiar with. Is this something from The Mandalorian?
I'm not sure. I think when I looked it up, because I'm not familiar with it either, the character originated in the Clone Wars series.
All right.
The animated series.
Yeah, in fact, I'm just looking on YouTube at the moment to say it's fun to see the differences of interpretation of this fan favorite character in the Mandalorian franchise. So there you go.
Yeah,
And I think he's in the Book of Boba Fett as well, which I haven't seen either.
yeah, he hadn't. Basically, there hadn't been a live action version at the time they were making this, but before they could get it out, the Book of Boba Fett episodes or whatever aired, introducing the characters. So they've kind of come at the same time.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Disney version, so I can't comment on that. But I really like this character. You know, this is the first time I've been introduced to him. I thought he was great. You know, very well realized. You know, most of the world building was really good. The early sets were superb. I do have an issue with some scenes. In some places they had too many establishing shots. In other places they didn't have enough. So it did feel a bit uneven with its pacing at times. But overall, I thought this was very good. How about you?
Yeah, I thought it was very impressive. And it's more impressive when you look into sort of the background of the film and the making of it. But for now I'll just focus on the film itself. What I like about it was, yes, the establishing of the characters. I mean, the costumes and makeup and everything are top notch. I mean, the CAD BANE character looks incredible, and all the dialogue in the film is clearly looped over or recorded after the fact.
Yeah,
which is a bit jarring, but you kind of get used to it. But that's probably my only quibble. I think it feels authentic to the Star Wars universe, despite the fact that, you know, it's literally just shot in outside and in a, like one interior location. But there's some visual effects and sort of background stuff, and everything is well rendered. I think, you know, there's a little floating robot around and stuff that looks quite good. The Jawa looks, you know, good, and the voice, you know, because obviously it's subtitled because it's a Jawa. That's all fantastically done. There's the stormtroopers. You know, that's a quite familiar costumes, pretty easy to get hold of. But the CAD BANE character himself, this kind of gunslinger from the old west sort of style, and they definitely lean into that. There's like some fistful of dollars-ish sort of shots in there and stuff. It's a small film, so it's but only between like a couple of these two characters and following them on their little journey. But, you know, even though one of them is subtitled and the other one's talking English, the banter is kind of working between the two. They're kind of you've got that kind of you know, he's like the grump, you know, and this other one's like the sort of lively kid sort of character.
It's a classic sort of antagonistic.
It is, yeah. It's well played. The film, I didn't mind the pacing. I thought, you know, we get a big gunfight scene, you know, or shootout scene, I should say, with the stormtroopers, and then another climax scene for a climax. So it fills its 18 minutes really well. What I liked was when it started, I thought, oh, we're just going to get these characters in this room, and then it's like, well, no, that's just the first few minutes, and then we're out in the world. And it's not just you get to one location and you know, the camera's sort of living there. There's lots of shots, lots of setups. You know, you're getting montages of the characters, you know, during their journey going to different places and stuff. So, as you say, the world building, that really works, I thought. So, yeah. And what the thing is about it is that it was, and you read this in the credits and then the description, it was a family project. So, and you watch the credits, it's all like members of the same family. So I think it's like the director is also the guy playing CAD BANE. He's the father. The Jawa, I think, is played by his daughter. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. And I think his wife was the DP and stuff. And it says they didn't really have any resources, although they had some fantastic resources for the costume and everything, obviously. and the makeup. But yeah, they seem to. I'd love to see a making of. They seem to have pulled off something really impressive with very limited resources. Just calling in favors and things like that. So and this, we've seen quite a few Star Wars fan films, like the Scorekeeper one, which was a riff on Predator, the Forsaken Mandalorian, and the Drunken Jedi Master one. This one I think is one of the ones I've liked the most recently. Again, I think it's that it feels authentic, and maybe it's that character, and
he certainly centers
like
it. He gives it the right level of sort of realism, as it were.
Yeah, I'd definitely love to see him reprise, this team, reprise that character and do something else with him, send him on another adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a nice sort of well-contained story, it works really well. It's a very good fan film. So we don't score them, but we do recommend them. That's why it's on here. And you will find a link to this in the footnotes below. Our DTV throwback this week then is Wounded. Julie and Don are two forest rangers who uncover a horrific series of bear killings. When they team up with some FBI agents to capture the poacher responsible, tragedy strikes, leaving Julie with severe injuries. On her road to recovery, she finds herself being used as bait by the feds to lure out the poacher out of the forest and into the urban jungle. Okay, starring Madchen Amick as Julie, and we have Adrian Pasdar as the poacher. Adrian, of course, we know him from various films. The thing I always remember him mostly from is the series Prophet.
So you see, that's the one I remember. That was quite. I think it only lasted really like one series, but it was a really good one.
It was a really good one. Yeah, it was a shame that died. I think it was the writer's strike or something that happened that killed it off. But anyway, but it's as I've said before, I consider myself to be a bit of a movie buff. Seen thousands and thousands of films over the years, and yet you constantly surprise me, Rich, with these films, which just snuck out under my radar completely. I really enjoyed this. This is it is a good find. I think the best find we've had is something like Firestorm, for the throwbacks, but this is close. The opening section is really, really well done, and the closing bit, the bits that are done in the forest, I think are superb. Where the film sort of lags a bit is when the action or lack of it sort of moves to the city, when she's sort of going through this kind of very realistic sort of recovery period, not just from her injuries but sort of psychologically as well. And from a filmic point of view, it does sort of slow things down a bit, but it does at least introduce the wonderful Graham Greene, an actor I always sit up a bit straighter when he's when he comes into a story. My favourite film of his is Thunderheart with Val Kilmer.
Oh yeah,
really like that one. I thought he had a really good character in that, and it is it's similar kind of character that he plays in this. So that was really good. It's really weird that this film is directed by the same person who did Battlefield Earth, because I was watching it thinking, oh, this guy's really good. I wonder, whatever happened to him. Oh, Battlefield Earth.
What did he do on Battlefield Earth? No, he didn't direct. He wouldn't have directed it because that was somebody else. I know. I think it was Christian Deguire directed Battlefield Earth, but he might have been there. I know that he did. I can tell you he did what just before this. He did White Tiger with Gary Daniels. He directed that.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, he was second unit director on Battlefield Earth.
Okay, yeah, and I think he's done quite a lot of television and stuff.
Yes, he has. Lots of different series over the years. I thought this was really smart. That whole sequence at the beginning when especially Adrian Pasdar's character, the way he moves in the forest, he really you really feel that he's, you know, he does this for a living kind of thing. He lives the forest, as it were. Yeah, but that was all really, really well done. Had you come across this one before, Rich?
This is a weird one because I know it. I feel it was familiar, but I didn't really know it, and therefore I was like, did I rent it when it came out? I'm not 100% sure. I'm watching it, and it feels fresh, but at the same time, it feels like I might have seen it before. So it's just, I'm really not sure. But I was definitely aware of, you know, sort of, I had a passing knowledge of the film, but you know, but I haven't come across it in donkey's years. You know, so, what I was a bit thrown by was the posters got that, or at least the particular artwork that is being used these days, is very much Madchen Amick's got the camo, you know, makeup on. She's in the woods and stuff, and it says it's about hunting and whatever. So I sort of had the feeling that the whole film was going to be in that kind of setting, like surviving the game or something.
Yeah.
But as you say, it starts in that. The first act is out in the wilderness, and the last act is, but the whole middle section, probably about 45 minutes or something, is in the city, and it's much more of a slow burn cat and mouse kind of thing happening there, with some other bits and pieces happening with Adrian Pasdar's character meeting up with his buyers and stuff like that, and some intrigues. But yeah, it's a predator prey kind of story. I like the production values and everything because it feels like a big movie, although it was a lower budget movie, you know, made by Keystone, who did quite a lot of stuff that came out via distributors like High Flyers.
It helps having all that that helicopter footage at the beginning, you know, sort of swooping over the mountains and stuff.
Yeah, and say the casting, the look of the film. Obviously, the films look differently now. So when you watch something from back then, it somehow feels like a bigger, more theatrical movie because of the filmic look, which is missing from a lot of films because of the way photography has changed, cinematography has changed. I like all the opening. I thought when the action kicked in, this was kind of a pre-Michael Bay over editing kind of thing going on, because it was far too quick in places, but very good. You know, Adrian Pasdar's pretty perfect playing that character, the costume and makeup thing, and Madchen Amick's really good. This is essentially a revenge story. I'd probably liken it to something like The Brave one with Jodie Foster. She's very strong. You know, she is a game warden, you know, experienced in the wilderness or whatever. But by the time we got to the end, I was thinking, would she really be able to hold her own, go toe to toe, you know, tracking and, you know, taking on this, you know, extremely experienced, dangerous hunter? It just, so, I mean, how did she track him so well, you know, in that vast wilderness? I don't know if I missed something where he left some crumbs or something for her to pick up.
Well, that's why she sets the ranger station on fire, to bring him to her, sort of thing, you know, because she knows that he'll be too intrigued. And of course, he ends up with she leaves the walkie-talkie for him to find. So, you know,
but still, it's, you know, in the vastness of the world, you know, that's still, even in a fairly small space, that it would be quite hard to find certain things, or whatever. So I don't know if I miss something about how they got drawn to that particular area. Was that the area that the initial part, you know, the initial killings happened in, and perhaps that's why they sort of went back to that same ground? So she had something. Anyway, I'm not sure. Her makeup, you know, when she puts the camo on, and it looks fantastic. It looks very cool. It does look like they've both had their makeup done by the same people. So it's like hers is like pretty similar. I mean, there are differences, but it does look very professionally applied. But it looks cool. I thought it was funny. They do it kind of for at least a couple of minutes. It turns into Commando. They do she's putting her gear on and, you know, putting the knives in and stuff. And there's a whole bit where she walks away from the fire. And as you say, she sets that fire.
They did manage to sort of avoid any predator sort of, nods, I think, for the most part. There are a couple of musical cues.
It does feel a bit predatorish, yeah, definitely at
But,
times.
but I was kind of looking out for it. But I think otherwise, I think they sort of managed to sort of avoid it too much. Just sort of it didn't lean too heavily into that sort of pastiche.
No, definitely not. No, and I thought, there was quite a lot of, as you say, we had Surviving the Game, and I can't remember. There's a couple of others, but
I think it's like Deadly Pursuit.
Yeah, all have played in that kind of territory. Actually, this is probably
Into the Grizzly Maze was probably.
Yeah, Into the Grizzly Maze was one that came to mind recently, but I think something like Deadly Pursuit or Shoots Killers, I think it was known originally. That is kind of, if somebody liked that movie, I think they would like this one. I think it's definitely in that sort of similar vein. We've also got people like Robert Costanzo in there. Getting to Graham Greene's character, actually, he was good because it's set up in that typical, rogue cop sort of teams up with the victim kind of thing, and he's a cop on the edge character, but he's a bit different. He's kind of like, well, I don't really fire my gun anymore because I liked it too much. And then there's like a bit later in the film where he's like, he's really excited about all the gunfire.
It's funny when he opens his gun closet, which is hidden behind the bookcase. That was a pretty little moment as well.
Yeah, I was thinking it made me think of like this could have been. It's kind of like a Steven Seagal role, but played by Graham Greene, because it's a whole On Deadly Groundish kind of. Going to this massive collection of guns that he's got hidden away, and then going into the woods, which again sort of fits into this rural. Rural. I don't know if rural is the right word, but sort of wilderness action movie kind of thing that was again very prevalent in the Hard Target and all sorts happening in the 1990s. This one's from 1996. Madchen Amick was probably best known from things like Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
she'd done a couple of other movies like Dream Lover with James Spader, but more recently she's on one of your favorite shows, Riverdale.
She's in Riverdale. Yep. Yeah, very good in that as well.
And Adrian Pasdar, he went on to do a lot of other television, including Heroes. And
that's right. Yeah.
I don't know what Graham Greene's been up to in recent years. He's, because obviously most people would know him if they recognised it from Dances with Wolves, but he did loads of other.
That was his breakout role.
Yeah, that was his breakout role. But he's done more recently. He was on the TV series American Gods and Goliath.
All right.
Oh, that's right. He did the film Shadow Wolves with Paul Walker's brother. I've been meaning to check that out. I think it's Paul Walker's brother.
Antlers. Apparently, Antlers is really good.
Oh, is he in that?
Yeah, apparently he's in that.
Oh, that's that's turned up on Sky, I think. So I might give that a check out. So yeah, so certainly that's one I think we both would recommend.
Absolutely. Yeah,
fair to
definitely
say.
Would. It's available on, what was it, Roku?
The Roku channel have it available for free, but it is available to rent from other
you can rent it through
providers.
Amazon, for example. That's where I caught it. But definitely worth checking out. If you like films like, Shoot to Kill / Deadly Pursuit and Into the Grizzly Maze, that sort of thing. I must admit, I do have a soft spot for any sort of action or even horror movies that are set out in the wilderness. I think it does really sort of lend some great atmosphere. So both me and Rich recommend you check this one out. And that is the end of this week's show. So thank you for listening. Thanks to Rich for joining us with these rather sort of disparate British thrillers that we looked at, the Bezonians and Bluff.
That was enjoyable contrast, I would say, if nothing else. So definitely a contrast of what's happening, sort of a little taster of the current state of the British film industry, and particularly the crime genre.
Absolutely. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest, and also the Short Shots Also has its own Twitter page where Rich puts a link to a new short every evening. Thank you for listening. Tune in again next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.